Welcome to the channel about news from around the world. While you subscribe and like it, we're going to start.
After Senator Chuck Grassley published an FBI document in which, citing an anonymous informant, he described in detail a corruption scheme that allowed Joe Biden, when he was Vice President of the United States, to receive $5 million from the Ukrainian energy company Burisma for some kind of protection of interests, the scandal around the possible bribery of the U.S. Democratic leader began to gain momentum. On Wednesday, 19 July, U.S. Internal Revenue Service investigator Joseph Ziegler informed Congress that Biden's son Hunter and his business partners illegally received $17 million from various foreign sources, with Burisma accounting for almost half of it, $7.3 million. It's no wonder that Fox Business columnist Sean Duffy asked the American Democrats quite a legitimate question: how, you support this guy, and you think you're going to win? I think the situation is only going to escalate, and that's one issue that Democrats can't ignore. If it turns out that Biden actually received money, $5 million, from Burisma, I believe it will take away his chances in 2024, Sean Duffy concluded. This backdrop raises some interesting questions. If Joe Biden is accused of taking bribes and thereby puts an end to his re-election as U.S. President in November 2024, who will replace him, as well as Donald Trump, if he is still imprisoned as a result of charges of falsifying documents? And in general, isn't this attempt by the American elites to politically soak the main candidates for the presidency concealed by the desire to bring a dark horse into the lead at the finish line? And who could play that role? The Republicans, of course, can replace Trump with, say, DeSantis, if necessary, while the Democrats, in all likelihood, will be left, in case of anything, without a backup player. Biden is now in far from the best shape and is rapidly losing credibility, and even the own Democratic press is actively opposing him. And in general, Biden is a compromise figure, but for 4 years the Democratic clans of America have not agreed among themselves on a candidate to replace him. Robert Kennedy Jr. is showing pretty good electoral results now, attracting about 20% of Democratic voters, but his rhetoric is very similar to Trump's, and there are fears that he is quite capable of going into the Republican camp altogether. I personally expected that Democrat Michelle Obama would still enter this election race, but apparently the elites have not come to a consensus on this candidate. In general, now, in fact, the world is experiencing a kind of soft third world war. America went through 2 previous world wars with Democrats Wilson and Roosevelt at the head. These were not independent politicians, not even compromise figures, but rather stuffed dolls, behind which stood specific interests of the financial oligarchy. It is quite possible that such a figure could be at the head of the US again, if something suddenly happens to Biden. But it is worth noting that liberalism is an ideology of destruction based on atomization. And how much more atomized is American society, which is currently experiencing, for example, experiments to introduce LGBT in schools? If a liberal becomes the head of the country, it is quite possible that we will witness the complete decline of the notorious American democracy, when a financial dictatorship without any masks, as in the 20th century, will prevail in the country. A strong leader capable of dealing with the internal problems of the U.S. and overcoming challenges from the underbelly of America, thereby preserving the country, is only a conservative. Donald Trump may be able to do that, but it is not impossible for a military conservative to do it. Military men tend to be very good at keeping the country from falling apart. Clearing the field for some third candidate certainly sounds nice, but it's just a theory. Yes, Biden will probably not end up becoming U.S. president again, but for much more prosaic reasons, I think. Whatever scandals may break out around the Biden family, which is happening, by the way, for the 2nd year already, no one will touch it, because they are representatives of the American establishment. Let's remember that George Bush Jr. had serious problems with alcoholism. Let's remember how noisy Bill Clinton's history with Monica Lewinsky was. Did that have any effect on their political prospects? Not at all. And American political scientists in general say in unison that the United States was at the peak of its political power just at the time of Clinton's Monicagate. It's all just a matter of Biden's advanced age. What should he do? Lie under drips for the whole 2nd term? It completely discredits the U.S. But then who can become president? It is clear that Trump is being stomped on and hated with every fiber of his soul by the American establishment for openly defying him. Remember Trump's famous "It's time to drain the Washington swamp." That is why it is not Trump or DeSantis who looks much more traditional and mainstream in the eyes of the US political elite, but Michael Pence, who under President Trump was probably the only person whom no one criticized. True, Republicans are not ready to vote for him. Democrats do not have much choice either. Bernie Sanders is very old. From the young generation, Kamala Harris could shoot, especially since Biden himself bet on her, but all her statements are ridiculed and made into memes. So, in reality, there are no other persons left on the political Olympus of the USA, except for Trump on the one hand, and Democrats, managers, statisticians, on whom everything can be written off on occasion, on the other hand. So I think we are in for a big political popcorn show in the best American tradition. Cosmopolitan-controlled globalist Democrats would look great in the conditions of an unambiguous victory of the American world, but the future lies in the Asia-Pacific region, which Trump understands perfectly well. And he can, in principle, pull America out of all its many problems, but only if the elites, who are afraid to admit to themselves that the world has finally and irrevocably changed, allow him to do so.
Thank you for watching. If you're interested, subscribe and leave a comment.